The defense team for Kyle Rittenhouse has put out a new video showing what happened on that fateful night in Kenosha during the riots. For those that aren't familiar, this is the story of the young man, Kyle Rittenhouse, who was armed with a rifle and equipped with a medical kit, who went down to protect businesses, render first aid, and, of course, he had a weapon to defend himself. Ultimately, he ended up shooting 3 people. 2 of them had died. In this video, there are things I'd never seen before. For instance, a group of these guard members, or whatever this group is, the people Kyle were with, said that they were actually on the side of the protesters. They said, no lives matter until Black Lives Matter. They literally say that. They offer first aid. They say, just don't attack each other and we're with you. They also show footage of Kyle Rittenhouse carrying a fire extinguisher. They show footage of the rioters stealing dumpsters and running off with them. They go into detail about how Kyle Rittenhouse is seen with a fire extinguisher, and then the guy who is masking up and starting the fires is then later seen chasing after him. Somebody fires a gun. Now, this video, I gotta say, man, I think it's very definitive, and I think it was very well put together. They show you several clips where throughout the day in Kenosha, people are armed. They zoom in, they show you the guns. Now, when Kyle Rittenhouse was running away after putting out these fires, and all of this is corroborated by witness statements, people I've interviewed personally who have published footage who were there on the ground. As Kyle Rittenhouse is running away from this guy, another man fires a gun. In this video, they've identified the man. This is more than even the New York Times was able to put together. Of course, this is a legal team offering up defense. Naturally, they're trying to defend their client. Some things may be omitted, but based on what I've seen, is extremely comprehensive, getting into the finer details. And it shows, I believe, beyond a reasonable doubt, this kid was acting in self-defense. However, that doesn't absolve him of the misdemeanor gun charge, but that's something entirely different. Should Kyle have been there? Personally, I don't think so. I think he was too young, but I don't think he was a white supremacist or a bad guy. He was rendering aid to people. In the footage they put out, they show him yelling, "If you are hurt, I'm an EMT." He hands his gun to someone else and people come up to him. He was rendering aid to these people. Well, YouTube has censored the video. This is just the way things are going to be. This is just the way things are from now on, huh? The following content has been identified by the YouTube community as inappropriate or offensive to some audiences. They've removed the share function of this clip. The only way to share it is to directly link to it. I had a friend I was talking to the other day. I referenced this several times in the past a week or so, but it's because we had a several hour-long conversation. This is someone I think is a really good person, very progressive, doesn't like Donald Trump. And when we got into the conversation about Kyle Rittenhouse, she told me that he was a white supremacist who crossed state lines armed, and then ended up shooting peaceful protesters. And I was just like, dude, please. So I found this video. Or I should say, I knew about the video when it came out. Tucker Carlson aired it. It's from the legal defense. And so when I was watching it, I said, I am going to share this with my friend so she knows what really happened. And the share button is gone. And you have to go through a bunch of, sort of restrictions, walls to get through to actually watch this video. The video is still up on YouTube. You just have to sign in, agree to their terms. You can't share it unless you have the direct link. This is, I think it's called restricted access or restricted mode. And I'll tell you what, I think I partly agree with some kind of restriction on this because they literally show the video of Rosenbaum dying. I can't show that on YouTube, and I understand why they would say it's inappropriate or offensive to some audiences. But it does create a problem whether or not you think they were right to do it or not. Perhaps the public right to know is more important than people's, objection to obscene material. We have a problem. You may have heard about what happened to Jake Gardner. All right, this guy was a small business owner. He came out of his bar. Some guys his dad got into a scuffle with some guys. Let me slow down. His dad pushed some guys, but then they decked him. Disproportionate response. He went over there. They started threatening him. He warned them several times. They attack him. Clear-cut case of self-defense. You probably heard this story over and over again, but I think it's one of the most important stories, and it's really relevant to what I'm talking about now. This guy, James Scurlock, jumps on Jake Gardner's back and is choking him out. Gardner tells him to get off. It's 18 seconds of being choked, switches the gun to his left hand, over his shoulder, fires. Scurlock took a bolt to the clavicle and died. When people set up a GoFundMe to defend Jake Gardner because it was self-defense, GoFundMe took it down. His landlord at his apartment kicked him out. His landlord for his business kicked him out. He had lost everything, but he was acting in self-defense. The only way we can solve problems like the things that happened to Jake Gardner, who eventually took his own life. It's a horrifying and tragic story. Marine veteran, 2 tours in Iraq, I believe 2 tours. And he was driven to suicide because of this. The only way we help people and stop the violence and the madness is if we know about it. But naturally, big tech falls on the side of letting the extremism happen. It's the leftward lurch. It's the pipeline. It flows in one direction. While at the individual level, the left will push you out and everything flows towards the right because the left is attacking their own and conservatives are recruiting, baby. The right's like, come over here and have a beer. Vote for us and we'll talk. The left is saying, get out, bigot. But at the cultural level, it's going the other direction, which is really interesting. You can post videos all day and night of police brutality. Now, of course, they've restricted certain videos as well of police brutality, but police brutality videos are everywhere, going viral on Facebook, getting millions of views, being shared like crazy on Twitter. But what gets restricted? The videos and the content and the fundraisers that defend those on the right, because the valve is blocking anything from going the other direction. Now, there's a lot of reasons why this may be, but I will tell you this. This video, you can see the URL tag. I can't link this video. I can't, because I'll get restricted too. But you can see it right there. It's a long code. You can type it in. It's been posted by Tucker Carlson and many other people, but YouTube is restricting it. And this video, I really do think it is an excellent and comprehensive view of what happened, what was going through his mind, and showing you that the rioters were the aggressors and Kyle Rittenhouse was acting in self-defense. Kyle Rittenhouse deserves some responsibility for what happened that night. He was an underage kid out there with a gun. At first, I thought, and I said this in several videos, so we'll call this a straight up correction. I thought that he actually had an exemption because there's a hunting provision in Wisconsin. Apparently, that's not the case. And more importantly, it's a misdemeanor charge. We'll see what the trial or his trial decides or what happens. Maybe he'll plead down. I don't know. But many of the other charges are insane. First degree intentional homicide, implying that he wanted to kill people. I got to slow down. It implies that he wanted to kill these guys. He was running away. In fact, in this video that they posted, you can see someone put their hands up and Kyle Rittenhouse immediately lowers his weapon. But man, I wish I could go through this video frame by frame. They bring up another really important point. The first guy who dies, Rosenbaum, who is chasing after Kyle Rittenhouse, he got shot in the back. He got shot in the left thigh, the groin, and in the back, and I think his lower abdomen. After Kyle Rittenhouse, so some guy, they've identified him. I'm not going to say his name. He fires. The New York Times said he fired in the air. I actually don't know that's true. It actually looks like he may have fired at Rittenhouse, triggering Rittenhouse to turn around and fire at Rosenbaum, who was grabbing for his gun. However, I believe 3 or 4 more shots ring out from an unidentified shooter. And it's possible that Rosenbaum, the first guy, actually took the lethal hit from somebody else. We don't know. But I think it's important to point out the footage shows definitively Kyle Rittenhouse was rendering aid, and he was trying to stop people from torching dumpsters and then pushing them into a gas station. Now, it wasn't actually him who stopped the fires, but in one of the videos, you can see they're pushing dumpsters, flaming dumpsters towards a gas station. I think, and I talked to many witnesses and reporters who were there, that it's possible they would have blown that gas station up. Because what people don't realize, you go to a gas station, they say don't have your phone because there could be a static shock and it could ignite fumes. That could start a fire. And we've seen how fires sometimes accidentally start. People will like put the pump, the hose into their car and like a sparkle happen, and then there's fire everywhere. Imagine watching people push a dumpster into a gas station. Well, some guy put this fire out. Another thing they point out in this video, which is really interesting, is this guy was wearing very similar clothes to Kyle. And perhaps Rosenbaum thought it was the same guy. It's really simple. Kyle and this group was saying, just don't attack each other and we're with you. No lives matter until Black lives matter. They actually yell that to the protesters. But rioters. The rioters wanted to start fires and they kept putting them out. And in other footage that we've not yet seen, Rosenbaum is seen setting more fires. So they speculate that maybe Rosenbaum attacked Rittenhouse because he thought it was the same guy who kept putting out the fires, though we do see Kyle putting fires out. What was the alternative? Let them blow up the gas station. How many people would have lost their lives if that was the case? You know what? It's kind of scary when you realize if that happened, maybe it would have shocked this nation and made them realize that these rioters have lost their minds. Instead, what we got were concerned citizens who came out and stopped the gas station from blowing up, and then chaos and tragedy. I don't know what's going to happen with the trial, but I can tell you that look, I can't show you the footage, I can't show you the videos, but I can talk to you about it, and I can talk about the danger of the censorship. Because with this restriction, which may be reasonable because it shows, literally somebody dying, less people are going to get access to this information. And it's extremely important they do. So let me just offer my breakdown, my explanation, my excuse, maybe. Look, I'd love to show you this video in full and go frame by frame. But I think what I'm doing here is I'm trying to create a window into what happened with this content. This video I'm doing right now and everything I'm saying in this podcast will allow you to hear a lot of what this video is telling you. But this video likely will not be restricted because I'm not showing you it specifically. You get it? So I'm trying to do the best that I can to sort of filter this to you, bypassing the censorship. And I'm doing it in ways that YouTube is okay with. Hopefully this is enough. But we're going to move on because I want to tell you why this is happening. What happened in Kenosha was a tragedy. And I think everybody agrees. Certainly there's going to be a lot of people who are going to, gloat and laugh and cheer. And I'm not a fan. I think it's horrifying that these people lost their lives and that Kyle's in this position. But this is the result of police not intervening, not arresting these people. And it's been happening across this country. This is a result of Wisconsin not accepting help from Donald Trump and the feds. And this is another reason why I am so on board and just saying, I'm going to vote for Trump. You know why? Because you are doing this, okay? Trump is sitting there saying, let me help you. And you're saying no. And then Kyle Rittenhouse situation happens. Well, let's kick it up to Seattle. Seattle City Council votes to override Mayor Durkin's budget veto. Now, what does that mean? It means they're defunding the police. The mayor tried stopping them, and they said, nah, we're going to defund the police. So what happens when you defund the police? What happens when you tell cops, like they did in Seattle, you can't use riot control, crowd control, munitions, you can't use tear gas? Then they can't effectively disperse crowds. The police put out a statement a while ago. It was brief. I don't know if they're still in this position where they said, our hands are tied. We can't protect businesses. The rioters came out, smashed up a bunch of stores, stole property, burned it in the street. The cops couldn't do anything about it because a court, I believe it was a judge ruled they couldn't use, I believe, I'm not sure if it was the city or the judge, said they couldn't use crowd control tactics and munition. So like tear gas and stuff. So they said, okay, we can't. And then the rioters went around destroying everything. If that keeps happening, you know what's going to come, what will emerge from that? More situations like we see with Kyle Rittenhouse. More people saying, I have no choice. The police are not here. What am I supposed to do? And I'll show you something. We'll come back to the story and I'll read it for you. I'm sorry, that's not the right story. PPB planning response to mass gatherings on September 26, 2020. Portland police have their hands tied. And this is where things are getting really scary. You see, the Proud Boys have announced they're going to be in Portland on the 26th. We are only a few days away from that. Antifa has announced they will be there to counter this. It's going to be bad. It's going to be real bad. What do we need? We need the police to lock everything down in such a way that Antifa can come and they can have their little space and they can yell, and the Proud Boys can come and have their space, wave their flags and yell, but keep them separated. Because Antifa is going to try and start a fight with the Proud Boys, accusing them of invading their home turf. The Proud Boys are going to say that they have a First Amendment right to be there. It's true, they do. They absolutely have a right to be there, to march and to protest, but Antifa doesn't care. They're going to say, you're fascists, and they're going to want to fight. If that happens, it will be absolute chaos. And if you think the Kyle Rittenhouse situation was bad, multiply that by 10. We need the police. We need the police funded, and we need Portland police to prevent these two groups from coming into contact with each other. Look, I respect the First Amendment for both groups. The right to free speech, the government can't stop you from speaking, is what I say. The right to free speech separate from the First Amendment. I'm saying you can come out, you can speak. As it pertains to the First Amendment, the police shouldn't stop you from doing so. But the police should stop people from crossing barriers and interacting with each other, because it will just be, it's going to get brutal. So I look at what the PPD is planning. And I also look at what's going on in Louisville. Louisville has declared a state of emergency. They're locking the downtown area. They're shutting down parking. Why? Because they know riots are coming. This is what we need police for. Well, Seattle, they're getting rid of their police. Here's what's going to happen. They say, as part of the amended budget proposed by the council, which has now been officially adopted, the spending plan calls for cutting the police department staff by roughly 100 officers, eliminating the department's navigation team, which serves as an outreach effort to the homeless. The council voted 7-2 to override this budget bill, while voting 9-0 to override the other budget bills, trimming the salaries of SPD command staff. The council's 2020 amended budget will strip the department of roughly $3 million, which equates to less than 1%, a 1% defunding of the department's 2020 budget. These suggested cuts will now fall on the Durkin administration for implementation. Council, as a legislative branch of city government, can pass legislation and budgets, Gonzalez said. We cannot force the mayor to spend or not spend as we have directed. Now listen, less than 1%. And they're trying to get 50%. That's what they're saying. They're basically saying that this is on their path towards getting this budget slashed by 50%. It's what the activists want. I'm not going to pretend that cutting 1%, less than 1% of the budget is the end of the world. I'm talking about the worrying trend in trying to abolish police departments or defund them. In Minneapolis, they voted outright to abolish, but they can't because it's getting jammed up. And now crime is surging, violent crime. And now these council members that voted to get rid of police are now complaining because their constituents are freaking out that cops won't respond to these calls. And they're, well, the cops are just doing it to punish us, blah, blah, blah. What, are you kidding? You're charging 4 officers who are doing their job. I think the biggest problem that the activists don't realize, they don't see, is the system itself just needs to be changed. No, they want a face. They want someone to suffer. I don't want anyone to suffer. Am I mad about what happened with George Floyd? You betcha. And there's a lot of circumstances around this. Did he die of fentanyl? Did he die from asphyxiation? Depending on who you ask, you'll get a different answer. I'm not here to argue which tribe is right, although I obviously have my opinions on which one I think is right. I'm just trying to say, listen, if we can figure out ways to make sure people don't die, that would be a good thing. But you got to understand that sometimes these things happen. There's nothing we can do about it. The problem isn't the officers. It's the system as it stands, which means reform makes a lot of sense. But reform means more funding. It means fund the police. I know it probably means more taxes or something like that. And maybe that's a problem. But if you want social workers, I say this. Don't cut 100 officers. That's crazy. You see where this is going? Look, I don't think cutting less than 1% of their budget is going to be the end of the world. I don't know if that's on top of the staffing cuts and the salary cuts, or if it's the total cost of things. But we cannot move in that direction. I think we want to demilitarize. Can we sell off somehow some of these ridiculous armored vehicles the cops probably don't need? And I understand that certain jurisdictions do need them, but perhaps the appropriate response is to have a specialized jurisdiction with I guess you can call it a militarized defensive capability, armored vehicles and SWAT officers, but at a regional level, not at a city level. And so we can reduce a dramatic amount of the police militarization. We can reduce try and de-escalate things between criminals and police in terms of the kind of weapons they use. Still have the capability to use this technology because I do think it benefits us, but focus a lot of the extra revenue on more police, better paid police, better trained police, and yes, social workers to accompany police in some extreme situations. Or I shouldn't say extreme situations. I mean, like non-extreme. I mean the total opposite. So here's what I'm thinking. Can we give cops more money? Can we give them better pay? I think cops deserve. I do. I'm gonna say it. The left's gonna get mad. They deserve more money. They absolutely do. You don't understand, man. A lot of these cops get paid nothing. They get paid like trash. I think in New York City 10 years ago it was like $28K a year, like $30K a year. And you want these people to go out there, risk their lives? They're not gonna do it. They're gonna be like, not for $30K. Pop, pop, pop. You see a wanted gang member. He's on a warrant, and the cops are told to go arrest him, and they're gonna be sitting there thinking, I make nothing. I can barely afford my apartment. I definitely can't afford to live in this city. It's too expensive. They say that you need to make like $150K a year to live in New York City as middle class median because the cost of living is so high. So you want to have a cop who's making 30, 40K a year living in that city? They're not going to do it. Then you're going to tell them to go risk their lives? They're not going to do it. And I don't blame them. Pay them more, pay them better, and train them better. Maybe we should consider that we need to, more taxes or something, or reallocate funding from other areas to better fund cops, because safety is our priority, right? Look, if you can't eat, you can't live. If you can't drink water, you can't live. If you can't breathe, you can't live. And then you need shelter and you need security. Security is up there on the top of the list. If we do not feel safe, then people are going to get anxious and they're going to go crazy. And that's part of what's happening. And it's partly the media's problem. It's a problem of the media coming out and saying all these things, lying to people, not giving them the truth. Just trying to fan the flames. I think defunding the police is a horrifying trend that may not continue, because look at Minneapolis. The people who live there are freaking out. And the council members are like, uh-oh, people don't really like that we did this. But Seattle's moving forward, getting rid of 100 cops. That's going to make everything worse. And then we get Donald Trump saying, Portland, Seattle, and New York are anarchist jurisdictions. They're going to lose their funding. I think that'll make everything worse. I get why Trump is doing it, though. He's doing it for different reasons. Not that I'm necessarily a big fan, but I don't know how else you get these cities to fall in line and stop doing this. The general idea is simple. Trump says, if you don't want cops and you're trying to defund, then why am I paying the bill for it? The federal government should have, why? I don't live in New York. Why am I paying, taxes to the federal government to give to New York when they don't want the police? They cut $1 billion off their budget. Makes sense, I guess. It makes sense. So I don't know what else to tell you in that capacity. If they don't want cops, they don't get cops. I do think it'll be worse, though. We need to fund the police movement, but these activists, they can't see beyond their emotional rage. And so what do we get? The police don't intervene. The riots get worse, and they're about to get really bad in Louisville. I hope you're paying attention, man. They're boarding up businesses. They're boarding up courthouses. They're boarding up police departments, because we know what's coming. These cops in the Breonna Taylor case are not going to be indicted. At least I think so. And the rioters are going to come out. But you know what? I think they're going to come out no matter what. No matter what. And we know it. And this is why we need cops. We can't allow rioters to romp around and destroy everyone's lives, innocent people's lives, because they're mad at a system. We can change the system, man. When they chant around the whole damn system is guilty as hell, I'm like, sure, yes, okay, right? Fine. So listen. Rand Paul put out a bill to ban no-knock warrants. Apparently, the Breonna Taylor warrant wasn't a no-knock warrant. There's a lot we got to go through in that story. But anyway, regardless, Rand Paul says, I'm going to introduce the Justice for Breonna Taylor Act. And what happened? They still attacked him. Nothing will satisfy the mob. So you know what we need to do? We need to make sure our police are well-funded, well-trained, and well-equipped. And we need to make sure that we hold them accountable when they do commit crimes. That's all that it is. That's all that matters. And that means we can't throw people under the bus who defend themselves, but the mob wants it. And the mob is gaining ground and gaining traction. Heaven forbid Joe Biden get elected and bring these lax pro-mob policies to the federal government. Because what do we see in Seattle? Slashing cops, defunding police. Portland, having the cops stand down, DAs refusing to prosecute. You want that at the federal level? Trump's the last stand. The federal government's the only thing standing between us and absolute chaos. And Joe Biden's staff was bailing these people out. I'm sorry, man. Trump is the only person standing in front of us and what these people are doing. Now, look, I get it. If you live in a Republican area, you're probably fine. Because in Utah and Nebraska, they just shut this stuff down and said, nope. What was it? I can't remember what city it was, but they were like, we're not Seattle. And they just went in and arrested everybody. And that's what you got to do, man. Stop the riots before they get out of control. More police. But police accountability, 100%. Demilitarization, 100%. I mean, 100% in the sense of we should do it. Total demilitarization. I think the best way to explain it is too many departments have crazy vehicles and weapons they don't need. And so we can definitely reduce that and try and figure out how to better allocate funds. But I'll leave it there, man. This video is crazy. Kyle and the censorship is nuts. But I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. on this channel. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.